Freddie Coleman every Friday here on Big Board Sports. Freddie, good morning.
Good morning, Roger. Looking forward to doing this every Friday, man. We're going to have a lot of fun.
No doubt. I appreciate it. I got to get to last night first, though. What was your take on the Denver win? And everyone's kind of on the Cam Newton situation this morning, and the late hit, the helmet-to-helmet hit by Darian Stewart with under a minute to go in that game. Do you think that was handled properly?
It was not handled properly because we saw a couple of other instances where there were those helmet hits, those targeting hits, and no flags were called before that last one that was thrown, but then it was nullified because Cam Newton was called for intentional grounding, and those penalties offset. And even last night, me and Ian Fitzsimmons mentioned this reminded us so much of Shaquille O'Neal when he played in the NBA, and how ironic that today Shaquille O'Neal will be inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. So many times referees looked at Shaquille O'Neal and he would take punishment. They would say, look how big and how strong he is. He can take it. Well, to me, a foul is a foul. I don't care if you're 4'1" or if you're 7'1". And I honestly believe if you change quarterbacks, if that was Tom Brady, if that was Russell Wilson, because they're not imposing like a Cam Newton or Ben Roethlisberger of Pittsburgh or an Andrew Luck, they would have gotten more of a leeway when it came to the officials' call. So I thought I saw a lot of that last night in which those hits were dangerous hits, but no penalties went the way against the Denver defense.
Yeah, and the Stewart hit was clearly helmet to helmet, and then it gets offset, Freddie. That's the thing. It's like it's offset intentional grounding on Cam Newton, and that's a huge break for the Denver Broncos. But you see a hit like that, and because of offsetting penalties, there's no penalty.
Yeah, and the thing about that is, and a lot of people forgot about that because we had a couple of people say, well, why should they be offset? I said, it's an NFL rule. I don't like it either because I'm thinking a personal foul penalty should weigh a lot more than a 5-yard penalty. But those are the rules of engagement in the National Football League, and you have to abide by that whether you like it or not as a player or as a fan. And despite all of that, Roger, Carolina still got in a position where if they kick the game-winning 50-yard field goal, they win that ball game after losing a 10-point lead by leading that at halftime. So there were so many different elements and storylines that just made last night so fascinating, and that's game one of 256 games this year in the National Football League.
Freddie, I don't know what the ratings were on News Channel 13 here in the Capital Region and NBC, but they had been pretty darn good because that, to me, that was a great game to open up the season. Close. No one was shutting off the TV last night. 21-20 final. Goes right down, as you mentioned, a chance for Carolina to win that if they can make a 50-yard field goal, which they did not. But that was a great game. And I thought really one of the storylines going in was Trevor Siemian. And I thought for a young kid in that spotlight, down 17-7.5, Trevor showed himself pretty well last night.
Yeah, he was not overwhelmed or awed by the environment or awed by the moment because you clearly understand why John Elway had so much faith in him that he gave him a shot to win the quarterback job. And when he won the quarterback job outright, he said, well, I'm not going to keep Mark Sanchez around. There's no reason for that. And when you come out publicly like he did this weekend, he told everybody who was somebody, hey, we told Trevor, don't look over your shoulder. Don't worry about Paxton Lynch or anybody else. This is your job. People question John Elway putting Trevor Siemian in that position. I said, you know what? I don't question a guy whose track record as an executive has been pretty darn good with the Denver Broncos. What they've been able to do when they bring in Peyton Manning, this team won a division with Tim Tebow as their quarterback. Look at the kind of defense that he's been able to put around that running game and Trevor Siemian as their quarterback. When you have that confidence and you know a Hall of Famer has given you the sign-off like John Elway did with Trevor Siemian, you saw how he played last night. Even when he made mistakes, he didn't shrink. He was able to buff up a little bit more and then not make those mistakes against an outstanding Carolina defense that had his number in the first half, but then he and that defense, they had their number in the second half.
Freddie, Zach By hanging out with Roger here in the studio. I got to ask you about our regional teams of interest. We got the Bills at the Baltimore Ravens. Cincinnati is visiting the New York Jets, and the New York Giants are being hosted by the Dallas Cowboys. Of those three teams, Bills, Jets, and Giants, which one of those do you think has the best chance of coming out with a victory this weekend?
I think it's clearly the Giants because I still don't trust that Cowboys defense. And I think I believe Dak Prescott getting his first start as a rookie is probably going to play a lot better than people are anticipating that he's going to play. I mean, look at the weapons that he's going to have around him with that terrific offensive line. He has outstanding receivers in Terrence Williams, Cole Beasley, and Dez Bryant and Jason Witten. Ezekiel Elliott and Alfred Morris in the backfield. So offensively, they're not going to ask him to go out there and be Tony Romo, but at the same time, they're not just going to be the old wishbone offenses that we saw in the 70s in college football. That being said, I don't trust their defense against a Giants football team that last year offensively was top 10 in the National Football League, and I think they'll do that again, and they have to improve on defense. Buffalo playing against Baltimore, it would not surprise me that Baltimore is going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to be that good in the AFC North with Pittsburgh and with Cincinnati, and I worry about Buffalo's defense because if Rex Ryan leaves that pocket empty, he may be out of a job if that doesn't improve this season. And the Jets are facing a Bengals team that I think talent for talent may be as talented as anybody on both sides of the football in the NFL. They have a filthy McNasty defense. Their offense is going to be outstanding once again, even though they lost a couple of wide receivers. Although I worry about Tyler Eifert not being there at the beginning, but they seem to have the ability to find a way to score. I think the Giants stand the best chance because their opponent is not going to be as tough for them as we're going to see with the Jets in Cincinnati and Buffalo with the Baltimore Ravens.
Does New England, Freddie Coleman with us, and if you are listening to our show on a Friday from 10 to noon at 10:30, we're going to have Freddie on every week talking NFL football. We really appreciate that, Freddie. How about Garoppolo going to Arizona, replacing Brady? I've got Arizona winning this game. I got them covering the spread. I think it'll be an Arizona kind of night, and Garoppolo will might even struggle a little bit, to be honest with you. I'm sure Belichick will try to come up with a game plan that he can handle. But what do you think of Garoppolo in Week 1 going to Arizona?
Roger, I completely agree with you because the Cardinals' defense, getting Tyrann Mathieu back at safety, they have guys that just fly all over the place, whether it's Patrick Peterson, Calais Campbell on the defensive line. That's going to be a lot to ask of any quarterback, whether you're an elite quarterback or a guy getting his first start in the regular season in Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, I will say this. You know, Bill Belichick has made a note to mention that all week long to his football team. They don't believe you can go out there in that environment on their home field and win this ball game, and we don't have number 12 as a quarterback. He's going to use that as much motivation. He probably already has to go into that game. But they may not have Rob Gronkowski for that game. It's one thing to go in there without Tom Brady. You can't look at him and losing him and say you're going to be okay. But now you may not have Rob Gronkowski. So already now Jimmy Garoppolo has one hand behind his back trying to deal with that without one of those guys you really need. Roger, I'm with you. It's going to be very tough for him to go in that environment, but it may be the best thing for the Patriots because after that they have 3 straight home games, and I can't see them losing any of those home games. It would not surprise me that when Tom Brady comes back for Week 5 that this team is 3-1 after losing Sunday to Arizona, then winning those 3 games at home with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback.
Freddie, how high are you in the Pittsburgh? I'm originally a PA guy. I grew up in Pennsylvania, but have now been in the Capital Region for 30 years. I'm a Steeler fan going way back to the Terry Bradshaw days, to be honest with you. They're at Washington, one of the 2 Monday night games. Steelers are favored by 3. What do you think of the Steelers, and do you like them Monday night?
I do like them Monday night, and I think there are 3 teams in the AFC, really 2 teams in the AFC that have separated themselves and will separate themselves. And I think Pittsburgh is one of them, and I think when Tom Brady comes back, it will be New England. I think if the Denver Broncos play like this, I think they're closer to that line with both of those football teams. But even without Le'Veon Bell, the first 3 games, this offense is still going to be scary. And they were scary last year when he tore his ACL, and they were just tearing apart the league. This could be the one team in the NFL that has the potential to average 30 points per game in scoring. That's how downright offensively challenged they're going to bring that to everybody else. They're going to be terrific doing that. And I think the defense is going to improve a little bit. I don't trust the Washington Redskins defense. I know Kirk Cousins was great last year after struggling early, but that defense is still going to struggle a little bit. And you can't be a struggling defense when that Steelers offense is on the other side. So I like the Monday night, and I think that's the one team that legitimately is a threat to get out of the AFC along with New England to get to the Super Bowl.
I've asked you about a number of different matchups. Is there one that I didn't ask you about, Freddie, that you are locked into, really looking forward to on Sunday or Monday in Week 1?
Well, I'll look at Green Bay and Jacksonville because we've heard so much about these 2 teams. What is Green Bay going to look like when Jordy Nelson comes back from that torn ACL? Eddie Lacy lost a lot of weight at running back. Can he be that second hand to the first hand that is Aaron Rodgers in that passing offense? And I keep hearing from people about Jacksonville that they're going to be improved. They're in a winnable division, and I love their offense. I love Blake Bortles and the Allen brothers on the outside and Hearns and Robinson at wide receiver. That may be the best wide receiving duo that a lot of people don't know in the National Football League. But Gus Bradley was brought in as a head coach as a defensive guy. He was a defensive coordinator with the Seattle Seahawks, and yet they've been 4-12 every year he's been there. If they don't show any improvement on defense, then they're going to be in a 5-11 team, and they'll get somebody else as head coach. So I can't wait to see with that match. I think Green Bay's going to win, but how much better can Jacksonville be, and how much of an effect of Jordy Nelson coming back will have on that offense of Aaron Rodgers throwing the football and running the football with Eddie Lacy?
And one more from me, Freddie, and it's Colin Kaepernick related, but we saw Brandon Marshall on a knee last night. I think he was a roommate, college roommate of Kaepernick. So, yep. Doing a favor, I guess, or whatever you want to call it for his friend. But now we are hearing that the Seattle Seahawks are planning a demonstration. Do you think this is going to happen? And are we going to have another headline coming up on Monday regarding Kaepernick? And now we're going to include the Seattle Seahawks.
Well, I don't know if so much of Kaepernick's going to be the headline because he's not starting at quarterback for San Francisco on Monday when they play the Rams. But Seattle's gotten out in front of this to let people know, okay, expect something, that we're going to do something on Sunday when we play. And honestly, I'm not surprised to see it. I'm not a fan of it. I don't think the national anthem or the American flag, I'm not saying it's being disrespected. I just think there's a better way to use your protestations about the injustices that have gone on in this country. I think there's a better way to do that. But I do respect their right that if they feel they should do that, that you don't have to like it, and you don't have to respect it. That's your right as well. But I'm not going to continue to criticize and punish them because they're exercising their right to do that, whether supporting Colin Kaepernick or saying, hey, he made me aware of this, and I'm going to do that of my own free will. So I'm not surprised that we're going to see this from the Seattle Seahawks. I'm really surprised that we haven't seen it yet in college football. I wonder if what player is going to do that in college football, and then what kind of hailstorm is going to be when that player or players decide to do that in college football.
Freddie Coleman every Friday joins us here on Big Board Sports in Albany. Freddie, thanks a lot. We appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Enjoy week one, my man.
You too, Roger and Zach, and always a pleasure, and can't wait to do it again next Friday.
You got it. Thank you, Freddie. Freddie Coleman every Friday here on Big Board Sports.